This is an NJN News special report. Governor Whitman's State of the State address.
Good afternoon. I'm Kent Manahan. Welcome to NJN's coverage of Governor Whitman's State of the State address. This will be Governor Whitman's last State of the State speech, assuming that she is confirmed as the new administrator of the Federal Environmental Protection Agency. The governor is likely to highlight her accomplishments over the last 7 years. A joint session of the state legislature, along with other officials who have gathered at the War Memorial building in Trenton, are in attendance, where the governor will be making her address. NJN senior political correspondent Michael Aron is standing by at the War Memorial. Michael, is the governor likely to outline any new initiatives that her successor, Donald DeFrancesco, will have to follow through on?
Kent, there are two modest new initiatives in this address, which I call a provisional farewell address by the governor. It's her 7th State of the State address, as you indicated, most likely her last, but a provisional farewell address in that she still needs confirmation by the U.S. Senate before she goes to become EPA administrator. Also because she does have a budget address to deliver 2 weeks from today in Trenton. You asked about new initiatives. There are a couple of in this speech. According to an advance copy, the governor is going to stress health insurance for low-income citizens, extending the program known as family care to single adults and childless couples. Right now it only covers parents and children. She also wants to dedicate $25 million a year in existing state revenues to upgrading state parks and historic sites, a kind of companion piece to her signature legacy item, the 1 million acres of open space that will be preserved after a 10-year period of time. There's some anticipatory nostalgia in the address, according to the advanced text. I say anticipatory. There's a feeling that I'm going, but I'm not gone yet. Joining me is somebody who also is probably going and not gone yet, the governor's chief of staff for the last several years, Mike Torpey. How many years have you been chief of staff?
3 years.
3 years. What's the mood around the governor's office these days as she prepares to take a cabinet or quasi-cabinet level position in the Bush administration, and you all prepare to either stay on or head off to new careers?
Well, there are a lot of mixed emotions in the governor's office and those people who have worked with the governor for all these years. We're all very pleased that the governor has been nominated by President-elect Bush to head up the EPA. It's a wonderful appointment. It's great for the state of New Jersey. However, it's the end of 7 years of wonderfully hard work that we've all participated in, and for that reason, it's a little difficult, I think.
Jim Hooker on NJN News last night reported that you had talks with the Bush administration in Washington a couple of weeks ago. What are you going to do next?
I haven't decided what I'm going to do next, but no, actually I did not speak with the Bush administration a few weeks ago about me. I'm certainly in contact with the Bush administration, the transition team. There's people here in New Jersey who would like to serve in the Bush administration. I'm trying to do what I can to help them.
There's an air of celebration here in this hall today. We have things we don't usually see at a State of the State address, an Army band, a school choir. I understand the governor's family is going to be involved in introducing her. Is this a conscious attempt to kind of create an atmosphere? And we're going to get a 5-minute video, too, of highlights. I guess it is a conscious attempt to create an atmosphere that the end is here and we've done great things.
I think that's true. I think the last 7 years have been a great 7 years for the people of the state of New Jersey. And Governor Whitman, working with this legislature, has brought about many great changes. And I think that there is a desire to celebrate some of that. On the other hand, as you said, we're still conscious of the fact that the U.S. Senate has yet to act on her confirmation. And so we're not being too presumptuous.
Don DeFrancesco a little while ago told us that the transition from his vantage point, from Whitman to DeFrancesco, is about 20% underway, in his mind at least. From your vantage point, how is the transition going? Has it begun?
Yes, the transition in anticipation of the governor leaving is we're working on some scheduling briefings and things of that nature to make sure that that Senator DeFrancesco is fully aware of and understands the executive branch operations, understands the issues that we're facing.
Was this speech today shared with him?
The speech, an advance copy, was provided, as we often do, to legislative leaders, as well as you got it a few hours in advance as well.
Oh, you mean he didn't get it before we got it an hour ago?
He got it a little bit before that, but the governor did speak with Senator DeFrancesco yesterday about some of the items in the speech.
I read in the Bergen Record yesterday that a blue ribbon task force is going to be created to oversee the transition, to guide the transition. But your colleague Pete McDonough didn't know about any blue ribbon task force. Do you?
No, I don't.
I don't know if that was properly reported or not. How about the governor's confirmation hearing? All of a sudden, the subject of illegal aliens is back in the news because of the Linda Chavez situation. Governor Whitman had her own situation when she first ran for governor. Is there thought in her inner circle that somehow this is going to come up now at her confirmation hearing?
Well, the governor will certainly have to speak to that in her confirmation hearing, and she'll be prepared to do so. However, we don't believe it will be an issue ultimately. The governor spoke about this very forthrightly 7 years ago when she was, or 8 years ago when she was running for governor the first time. And this has been aired. It's old news. We don't believe it will be a problem.
So you think she's going to get confirmed fairly easily?
I believe that's ultimately up to the U.S. Senate to do, but I believe that given the discussions that she's had with senators and on her courtesy visits to date have all been very positive.
Mike Torpey, thanks very much for joining us. Legislators are filing into the hall here. Legislative leaders are up on the stage. The governor is due shortly, but meanwhile, we're going to go back to the studio. Take it away, Ken.
Thank you, Michael. And of course, we will rejoin you when the governor arrives to give her speech. The State of the State address is an opportunity for the governor to highlight her accomplishments. I'd like to turn now to our two political insiders, Republican analyst Roger Bodman and Democratic analyst Rick Thigpen. And of course, gentlemen, you heard Michael Aron's interview there, waiting for the governor to deliver her final, what's expected to be her final State of the State address. And this is, in a sense, her swan song, her fond farewell, if you will. The first woman governor of New Jersey, elected to 2 terms. Let me ask you, Roger, what do you think is the tone that she has to strike in this address as she delivers her final message to the people of New Jersey as their governor?
Well, Kent, this really is an opportunity for her to start to set the tone for her legacy and talk about those things that she's most proud of during her 7 years. And I think this speech does just that. It starts to, set that tone, and she gets to talk about the things that she's most proud of. It's a victory lap, a swan song, as you call it. She gets in the race car and she hangs a checkered flag out the window and takes a lap and says, here's all the great things I've done for New Jersey. Please remember me that way.
So we can expect a list of her accomplishments as she has touted them over the last 7 years. Let me ask you, Rick, will the Democrats allow the governor this time to, if you will, celebrate her accomplishments as she sees them during her term in office, or will you harp right on the bandwagon and go after her and start the criticism?
I think, first off, Ken, it's time to wish her a fond farewell, to give her the opportunity to leave graciously and hope and wish her well in Washington, and hope that she becomes a real asset to New Jersey as we hope to protect our environment moving into the future. I think that's very important. But beyond that, I think we will take a close look at the Republican record over the last 8 years and not allow the governor to romanticize what happened, because 2001 is a year for voters in New Jersey to decide which direction they want to take. It's going to be a referendum on the last 8 years of total Republican control. And so we're not going to give them a free pass on the past that way.
But you're going to allow her time today,
Absolutely.
as you say. Well, let me ask you about
Absolutely.
this year, 2001. Of course, it's a huge political year in New Jersey, an open seat in the governor's race. Soon to be acting governor of New Jersey, Senate President Don DeFrancesco will be assuming the role of acting governor when the governor, if she is confirmed, goes on to Washington in the Bush administration. What is at stake as the governor hands over the reins of power or prepares to do so? What is at stake that she has to accomplish, perhaps in laying a tone for today and making an easy transition of power, Roger?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, I mean, it's a curious transition of power, Kent. Under our state constitution, as you know, acting Governor DeFrancesco will also be Senate President DeFrancesco.
And there is no lieutenant governor.
There is no lieutenant governor, so it's curious from that point of view, but that's the way the Constitution writers of 1947 saw it, and that's the way it is. But I think what she really has to do is basically tee up the agenda to a certain degree. Don DeFrancesco is an experienced legislator. He's been around Trenton for a long time. He has his own vision of what he cares about, and I think that the major items that will come forth is the budget. Of course, that speech comes down the road 2 weeks from now, as Michael Aron pointed out, and that speech is much more nuts and bolts. But I think you'll see the governor point to some of the priorities of her agenda at that point, and then Don DeFrancesco will take over and amend those priorities to fit his style and what he believes to be the future of New Jersey.
If I were to ask you, Rick, about looking back over the last 7 years and where the Democrats would look to offer Christy Whitman and her administration praise for their accomplishments, where would you say the most accomplished aspect of those years might be?
I would say a kind of a kinder and gentler Republican politics, certainly. She is really to be praised for being able to carry her pro-choice, moderate politics onto the national Republican stage, where it's really not very welcome. That's a major accomplishment. She has been the caretaker during a national economic boom of rising prosperity for Americans, and we have some differences on how she's handled that. We don't think that they've invested in the future properly, and we think that there is way too much debt in these good times. But there's no question that the governor has done a good job of setting a pleasant tone. She appointed James Coleman, the first African American, to the state Supreme Court. I think that bodes well for the future of New Jersey. So she's been a good leader in some regards.
Roger, where would you agree and disagree with that short list of accomplishments?
Well, I think you'll see the governor outline a larger list of, open space and tax reduction and property tax reform, lower crime rate and all these sorts of things. But you'll see another theme throughout this speech. She always, and she's, in the many years that I've been on this program analyzing these speeches with you, Kent, she's always talked about New Jersey as one face, one family, and many faces, one family, I should say. And I think you'll see that again here. She believes in everyone in New Jersey having a role and a place in our society. And this speech is interestingly done in a sense that it talks about policy being personal and the effects. We can talk about all these numbers and programs and this and that, but she tries to bring it down to how it affects the people of the state. She looked at it from a very paternal or maternal, I should say, perspective, I guess, in the way she felt about each and every New Jerseyan.
But if you were writing about Christy Whitman today, right now, where would you pinpoint her chief accomplishment, first and second on the list of what she has done?
I would say property tax reform. Perhaps let me start over. Open space, number one. And I think she's very proud of that. 1 million acres are well on the way. 200,000 acres preserved already. She has a goal of 1 million acres over the next 10 years. Property tax reform and what she's done for schools for education. And
you mentioned land preservation. Of course, Michael Aron mentioned that also in his remarks, setting up the tone for the governor's speech today. And he also mentioned the fact that the governor is expected to make known a proposal for $25 million or so to help maintain the state parks. Added debt in New Jersey, already existing money in New Jersey?
She apparently is taking that from the realty transfer tax, as I understand it, which is an existing tax. It's not additional debt.
So is this something then that we could expect that the Senate president would be able to assume and ride through the legislature and get sanctioned for? What would you say?
Possibly. I would like to add, there is no question that the Republican record over the last 8 years, and we're going to talk about that quite a bit more, is going to be about debt. It's doubled the state debt. It's tripled the debt for every man, woman, and child in New Jersey. During time of unprecedented economic expansion, they've borrowed and borrowed and spent and spent. $6 billion increase in state appropriations.
All right, and we'd like to pick up on that point if we can a little later on, but I'm going to toss it back now to Michael Aron, who's standing by at the War Memorial Building in Trenton, where the governor is set to deliver what's expected to be her final State of the State address shortly. Michael?
Kent, this will be the governor's 7th State of the State address. We've had a song by the Patterson Choir. We've heard the 63rd Army Band. We've got a color guard. We've had an invocation. Let's go to the podium and the stage now for the remainder of this State of the State ceremony.
Color turn. On behalf of both houses of the legislature, Senate President DeFrancesco and I would like to welcome everyone to the Governor's annual State of the State address. Mr. President, I wish to inform the joint session that the Governor has arrived. Will the committee to wait on the Governor please escort her to the podium?
I, Christine Todd Whitman,
I, Christine Todd Whitman,
do solemnly swear
that
I will support the Constitution of the United States
I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform the duties
of
the Governor of the State of New Jersey according to the best of my ability. So help me God.
So help me God. It is with an eagerness to tackle the challenges ahead that I take the oath of office as New Jersey's 50th Chief Executive and its first woman governor.
The number of good, high-paying jobs that have been created since Governor Whitman took office.
The number of people who will receive health care through Governor Whitman's Family Care Program.
The number of students connected to the internet in public schools.
The amount of money saved by New Jersey taxpayers from the Whitman tax cuts.
The last time New Jersey's crime rate was as low as it is today under Governor Whitman's Get Tough on Crime laws.
The number of seniors who received help in buying prescription drugs.
The amount of funding provided to rebuild New Jersey schools.
The number of acres of open space Governor Whitman has targeted for preservation.
You don't have to be a kid to enjoy ice cream or get quality health insurance. Hi, I'm Governor Christy Whitman, and I'm pleased to announce New Jersey Kid Care is now New Jersey Family Care.
This is Governor Christy Whitman. If you need information about senior services, get real help from real people. Call toll-free 1-877-222-3737.
Our open spaces and farmlands are an important part of what makes New Jersey a great place in which to live, work, and raise a family.
We all recognize the value of having unspoiled places where we can enjoy nature, watch our children play, or purchase Jersey fresh produce directly from our local farms. That's why we've set a goal to preserve an additional 1 million acres of open space in New Jersey over the next 10 years. That's also why I signed into law a state income tax deduction for landowners who donate lands for preservation purposes. When we preserve open space and farmland today, we're helping to ensure that our fields, forests, and farms will be preserved for generations to come. Thank you, everyone. I want to welcome you all here to the State House. Is everybody having a good time? Yeah. Great evening this is. This is an event we've all been waiting for and looking forward to for a long time, the official lighting of the restored and renewed State House dome. It was back in October of 1996 when I announced we were going to do this, and I think we all looked at it and thought, how are we going to get this done? It was a matter of safety, it was a matter of security, and of course it was also, for all of us who winced every time we saw the peeling paint, it was a matter of pride. The dome that has presided over the State House since 1889 is now once again a shining reminder of our place in the history of this nation. With that venerable past, of course, comes a responsibility to maintaining the legacy. The Capitol Dome renovation project is a great example of how public-private partnerships can work together and can get things done and preserve our state's legacy for future generations. I thank you for giving me the privilege of serving as the governor of the greatest state in the greatest nation on earth.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the podium John, Kate, and Taylor Whitman.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to introduce to you the governor of the great state of New Jersey, and also my mother, Todd Whitman.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, Madam Chief Justice, distinguished members of the legislature, honored guests, fellow New Jerseyans. As you know, this may be my last time that I report to you on the state of the state. Whether it is or not, I want to take this opportunity to offer a few words of gratitude. To the members of the legislature, thank you for your leadership. To the members of my cabinet and administration, thank you for all your hard work. To my husband, John, my daughter, Kate, and my son, Taylor, thank you for your patience, your love, and your counsel. And of course, to the people of New Jersey, I will always be grateful for the privilege of having served as your governor. What an extraordinary privilege it has been. Our state is 8.4 million people strong. It has the 16th largest economy in the world, the second highest per capita income in the United States. We are the home state of Nobel laureates and innovative geniuses, of electrifying performers, inspiring teachers, and gifted writers. We are the crossroads of the American Revolution and the proving ground of the high-tech revolution. We are the home of Ellis Island and a strong immigrant tradition, a place where more than 100 languages are spoken. We are a state of large, sweeping achievement and individual acts of stunning courage. We're a state where a boy named Sammy Gordon sold lemonade to help the victims of the Oklahoma City bombing. Where Seton Hall student Dana Christmas rescued hallmates from a fire despite suffering severe burns herself. Where state park maintenance worker Roger Weck swam out to save 4 people from drowning in a riptide off Island Beach and then calmly and humbly went back to his job. As these 3 heroes show, we are many faces in one truly amazing family, and I ask them to stand so that we can recognize them. If all politics is local, then all policy is personal. Whether you are cutting a tax or expanding prescription assistance, whether you are preserving a farm or raising academic standards, in doing so, you affect the life of a community, a neighborhood, a family, a person. When a tax cut saves a family money that it can put toward mortgage payments, that's personal. When a senior citizen can qualify for PAD and get the medicine she needs to keep her blood pressure under control, that's personal. When a business incentive leads a company in your community to hire dozens of new workers and your neighbor is one of them, that's personal. The start of a new year is a time to take inventory. In that spirit, let's look how New Jersey has changed through what we've accomplished together. Not just in the last 12 months, but in the past 7 years. Our state economy is more robust. We've added more than 435,000 jobs since I took office, and our unemployment rate for the past year has been at or below the national level. Our communities are safer with the lowest crime rate in more than a generation. Our children are better off. New Jersey is one of only 6 states in America and the only one in the Northeast to have reduced child poverty rate by 33% or more since 1993. Even as the state has been growing, our air and water are cleaner, with fewer days of high ozone and carbon monoxide and far fewer beach closings. We've made our schools stronger with more rigorous tests and standards, a greater commitment to teacher excellence, and a school construction plan unrivaled by any other state. We've cut by half the number of people relying on welfare and have greatly reduced the waiting list for community service for people with developmental disabilities and their families. Last, but certainly not least, we've made this state more affordable, with 39 tax cuts that have saved taxpayers nearly $12 billion. By these and almost any objective measures, New Jersey today is a far better place in which to live and work and raise a family. The New Jersey legislature has been an integral partner in our success, and I would ask the members now to stand so we can show all of you our appreciation. You know, measures are important, but measures aren't why I ran for governor, nor I suspect are they why the members of this legislature ran for office. The critics and the pundits will say what they like, but what makes this job so rewarding is that each day we have the opportunity to help people make a better life for themselves. That means helping a welfare recipient move from public assistance into a good job. It means helping a couple purchase their first home. It means providing the seed money to turn an idea scribbled on a napkin into a profitable business. For Bill Byrne, it means gaining independence. Bill is a person with developmental disabilities. For years, he was waiting for supportive housing so he could live on his own. Together with this legislature, we made a commitment for additional money to expand community services for thousands of people with disabilities. Today, Bill is living in an apartment in Morristown. Though he gets some assistance, his goal is to live on his own with no help. I have no doubt that he will achieve that goal. He wrote me a letter to say, "I am a success because of what you did." Of course, I'm glad we were there to help, but the truth is, Bill Byrne is a success because of what he did. Andrea Bodman is also building a better life. For years, welfare was the only way she could support herself and her 2 children. Out of the job market for more than a decade, she received job training and moral support from our Work First New Jersey program. That support was so strong that Andrea first called her caseworker, not her kids, not a friend, not even her sister, with the news that she had landed the job she wanted at a local hospital. She says, "When they told me I got the job, I felt so good about myself. My self-esteem went way up." Work First didn't get Andrea the job, nor did it boost her self-esteem. She did those things herself. We just helped her get there. Andrea is here today, and I want to thank her for sharing her story. That's what I mean when I say policy is personal. It's giving people the help they need to provide for themselves and their families. It's removing a barrier that may prevent someone from enjoying the quality of life that most of us take for granted. For many families in New Jersey, that barrier has been health insurance. 3 years ago, I stood before you and shared my vision of affordable health care coverage for every child in the state. Today, more than 75,000 children are enrolled in our Kid Care program, an enrollment record the Children's Defense Fund ranks among the best in the country. I'm also proud that our program has been recognized as one of the most generous in America. Now it's time to reach every child. To complete my vision of universal affordable coverage for kids, I'm proposing that we allow New Jersey families to purchase insurance for their children through our program at significantly lower rates than in the private market. Last year, this legislature went beyond providing health insurance for children. In October, we launched Family Care, our affordable insurance program for adults. I'm pleased to announce that in Family Care's first 100 days, we enrolled nearly 60,000 people. Applications for this program continue to pour in at nearly 2,000 a week. What does this mean for families? Well, if you ask the young mother of the Sullivan family, who wrote to me last fall, it means peace of mind. She wrote, "For the first time in 13 years, my husband and I will have insurance. I haven't even had a physical in 13 years." Family Care is a program in which we can take enormous pride, but we have to complete the job. I urge this legislature, let's raise the income limits for single adults and couples without children so they're the same as parents already covered by Family Care. All policy is personal, and for me, few policies are more personal than our efforts to preserve open space in the Garden State. Raised on a farm, I want every New Jersey child now and in the future to enjoy the character of the state I have always loved. I'm very proud of what we have done together. We've preserved nearly as much land during this administration as was preserved under the Florio, Kane, Byrne, Cahill, and Hughes administrations combined. What's more, I'm pleased to say that as of today, the Garden State Preservation Trust, which the legislature has supported so strongly, has made commitments of funding that will bring us to 200,000 acres preserved. That's already 1/5 of the way toward our goal of preserving 1 million acres by 2010. When I talk about preserving land, I don't want you to think of this land as enclosed in a giant glass bubble with a "Do Not Touch" sign slapped on it. On the contrary, we want people to visit our parks, historic sites, and wildlife areas. We want them to swim, hike, bike, and explore our state's natural beauty, not just saving our heritage, but savoring it. First, however, we must make sure our parks have the facilities to accommodate visitors. This can mean creating a trail, opening an interpretive center, or preserving a treasured historic building. That requires money, not just now when times are good, but every year, so that our parks and historic areas continue to draw visitors and capture the imagination. Last fall, I asked the Garden State Preservation Trust to inventory our needs in state land stewardship. Based on their recommendations, I propose that we create a stable source of funding to upgrade our state parks, historic sites, and wildlife areas, and add facilities to new state lands. We will call it the State Land Stewardship Investment Fund and dedicate $25 million for this fund each year from the realty transfer fee that we already collect. Let me give you an example of what this money can do. This is a musket that was used in the Revolutionary War. In fact, this musket was captured from a Hessian soldier at the Battle of Princeton in 1776, Battle of Trenton in 1776. For the remainder of the war, it was used by a private from the Hunterdon County Militia. Don't worry, it's not loaded. No one has to be concerned. This wonderful artifact is part of a private collection lent to the state by Harry Kells Swan through his foundation. Some of the items are on display at Washington Crossing State Park. We can use money from our stewardship fund to build on this collection and create a Revolutionary War Center where New Jersey can proudly tell the world the story of the War for Independence. I want to acknowledge Mr. Swan and thank him for sharing his collection. Ladies and gentlemen, we are blessed with some remarkable natural and historic resources. Let's make the most of them. Our goal should be nothing less than to create a world-class park system for the state of New Jersey. I have said that all policy is personal. That's certainly true when it comes to finding a job. By cutting taxes and streamlining regulations, we have removed some of government's biggest barriers to job creation. 435,000 jobs later, we can be proud of what we have accomplished. But the job market is a moving target. To continue our success, we must adjust our policies to reflect the changing economy. We've done that thanks to this legislature's leadership. Last year, you passed my proposal to invest $165 million in a package of high technology issues that we called New Jersey Jobs for a New Economy. Thanks to you, we are challenging universities to win more research dollars. We are creating 10 new business incubators and 30 cyber districts around the state. We have established a venture capital fund. We will soon build a technology center in South Jersey to match our success in North Brunswick. We've made a great start. Today, we can tell our young people with confidence that they can make their way in the new economy right here in New Jersey. But we must do more. to secure their place in that new economy, and with your help, we will. As I will detail in my budget speech, I am proposing another high-tech package totaling $200 million. Today, I will highlight just one part of that plan, one that shows our commitment to lead the way in preparing tomorrow's high-tech workers. Last year, we took some very strong higher educational programs in our state, and we made them even stronger. For the first time, we gave out $15 million in high-tech workforce excellence grants on a competitive basis. Those grants are already making a difference. I visited a program at Stevens Institute that is helping K-12 teachers in our Abbott districts make the best use of the internet to teach science and math geared to our rigorous new standards. Over at Rutgers, they're using our grant to prepare biotech lab workers. At Bergen County Community College, they're training surgical assistants for high-tech operating rooms. These initiatives reaffirm New Jersey's reputation as the innovation garden state. They have warranted our investment, but so did many of the good ideas that we couldn't fund last year. So today I ask that you fund high-tech workforce excellence grants at an even higher level of $20 million. Let's give New Jersey's superb colleges and universities the dollars they need to prepare students for good, high-paying jobs in the new economy. Two weeks from now, in my budget speech, I will offer a number of other proposals to help us lock in the progress we have made together since 1994. Chief among them will be a teacher quality initiative that will complement all that we have already done to give our children the outstanding education that they deserve. I have chosen to focus on these few plans today: family care, land stewardship, and high technology, because I believe that along with education, they reflect some of the most important and, I hope, lasting legacies of our 7 years together in Trenton. There's another legacy I hope to leave, a legacy of fiscal responsibility. Because of our sound planning, tax cuts, and prudent financial stewardship, we have watched our economy grow and outpace all surrounding states. We have seen the rating agencies upgrade our bond rating 4 times since 1994. Like any responsible family or business, we've used that opportunity to put money aside to help us remain strong. In fact, we've been able to increase our surplus every year. So today, I'm pleased to tell you that in what will be my last budget, I am proposing a surplus of $1 billion, the largest ever proposed in our state's history. Members of the legislature, we have come a long way together. I think back to many moments. Our work on Megan's Law and tax cuts, the struggles over auto insurance and school funding, the loss of friends over the years, most recently Lou Romano, the spirit of bipartisanship on so many issues, thanks to Minority Leader Dick Codey and Joe Doria, who haven't always agreed with me, but who put aside differences when it came to helping the people of New Jersey. I think about welfare reforms. Oh, Captain. I think about our welfare reforms, which I'd match against any in the country for balancing compassion and responsibility. Our historic property tax relief plan, and of course, our state's greatest victory of these years, our commitment to preserve another 1 million acres for our children's children and for all time. When I took the oath to begin my second term, I said I wanted to make New Jersey more livable. Considering last month's Quinnipiac poll reporting that 86% of New Jerseyans rate their quality of life as good or excellent, it's clear we are succeeding. I think of the woman who came up to hug me at a train station and said, "I'm in work first and I'm on my way to a job." I remember the email message that read, "Thanks so much for your efforts in car insurance reform. Our premium just went down over 23%. A letter from a veteran who told me, "Your fiscal responsibility is beginning to restore my faith in government." The mother of an 8-year-old who wrote, "I really appreciate your efforts toward researching the causes of autism. I plan to expand my family within the next few years, and hopefully with the funding, my second child will have a better chance of not having autism." I cherish the note from longtime beachgoer Irene Buch, who wrote to me in June of 1999. "As a lover of the ocean, I swam in the 59-degree water this past week, body surfing in the most beautiful, pristine water I have ever seen in my 75 years of going to the shore." And then there is 10-year-old Gabe Asaceta. As a first grader, Gabe was having academic and behavioral problems and was missing school all the time. His mother found out about the Elysian Charter School in Hoboken and sent him there. Now Gabe is a high-achieving 5th grader. He's in several enrichment programs, and he's so interested in his studies that his mom says she has to pull him out of the science center at night. Gabe and his parents are here. Congratulations, Gabe, and keep up the good work. As these examples prove, we can be proud of how state government has contributed to New Jersey's prosperity and quality of life. We can be prouder still of how New Jersey people themselves have made this state the best of America. I take pride in the great teachers I've met during my visits to more than 60 elementary school classes. I remember the passion with which entrepreneurs have told me their plans and their dreams. I recall the good people of faith-based agencies like Elijah's Promise that have turned lives around by teaching people job skills and finding them work. I saw the enthusiasm of 4th graders from around the state as they saved dimes for the dome and helped bring back the luster to our state capitol. I've also seen how adversity has tested our New Jersey family and tapped heroes among us. I think of the courageous people I met with a father, a mother, a child injured or killed in the line of duty. I think of the citizens who responded so quickly after the Edison pipeline fire or explosion, or Tropical Storm Floyd, or last year's plane crash in Burlington County. And of course, I will never forget the remarkable Seton Hall student you honored last fall. As you know, I have made it a personal mission to encourage young people to take greater responsibility for themselves and their communities. This administration has established character education programs to carry this message across the state. I believe acts like that which Dana Christmas performed last January are the ultimate example of responsible behavior and deserve special recognition. Therefore, as my final proposal to you today, I recommend that we create a scholarship program that gives awards of $10,000 to young New Jersey residents who have performed heroic deeds. A special committee will determine the criteria and award up to 5 scholarships a year. I'm confident there will be many worthy candidates in the years ahead. But to ensure that we never forget what this award stands for, I propose that we name it the Dana Christmas Scholarship for Heroism. And to get this program started, I intend to use money from my discretionary fund to award the first scholarship to the Angel of Boland Hall herself, Dana Christmas. And I want to ask Dana to come forward to receive this award. Fellow New Jerseyans, my time remaining as governor may well be measured in days and weeks, not months. Should that day come soon, I will leave the state in good hands with exciting things in our future. New schools, more relief for property taxpayers, many more acres of open space. I will leave the state to the steady and strong leadership of Don DeFrancesco, who along with Jack Collins has brought honor to this legislature. All right, you got your people. Who along with Jack has brought honor to this legislature and to our state. We've done great things together because we put the people's interests first. People often ask me how I would like to have my tenure as governor remembered. I'm sure I speak for all of you when I say that the best thing that people can say about our work together is that we have made New Jersey a truly better place in which to live and work and raise a family, a state that people are proud to call home. Thank you, and God bless the Garden State.
Chance of fate in this great garden state, we are run by someone who's first rate. To the governor, we all differ from Trenton, a prime candidate. From the New York Bay down to sunny Cape May, she helps solve all our cares and woes. And as long as you're our governor, Mrs. Whitman, you're our state rose. Find some chance of fate in this great garden state. We are run by someone who's first rate. To the governor, we all differ from Trenton, a prime candidate.
Please keep standing for the benediction by Bishop Jocelyn.
Let us pray. Holy God, we thank you for this state of New Jersey, our home and our heritage. We thank you for its people who have been gathered here from many kindreds and tongues. And today especially we thank you for the work and leadership of Governor Christine Todd Whitman, and ask your blessing upon her as she begins a new chapter in public service. We also ask your inspiration for us who remain, that with imaginative and generous hearts, we might continue to work together to address the present and future needs of the people of this state, and that this place may be even more a place of justice, well-being, and community for all. Grant that in times of prosperity we might be humble and generous, and that in times of adversity we might not lose heart, but continue in steadfast service to you and to all people. And now may the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord lift up the light of his countenance upon you and give you peace, both now and evermore. Amen.
It's all you. Okay.
We heard students from Upper Freehold sing to the governor. We heard a benediction after the governor's address. It was an address, the theme of which was all policy is personal. Governor Whitman talked an awful lot about how what one does in public life affects individuals up and down the state. She extolled the virtues of New Jersey. She listed her numerous accomplishments as she sees them: economic, environmental, educational, social. She offered a few new proposals in the area of health insurance for lower income citizens and preservation of state parks and historic sites. She proposed a $20 million program to increase grants to colleges for students studying high technology subjects, and she announced a scholarship program to honor Dana Christmas, the brave student who saved other students during the Seton Hall fire a year ago. Finally, she proposed or announced that in her budget message next year, she'll call for a $1 billion surplus in the next state budget. That's a newsworthy item that was kept out of her advanced text of her speech. We're going to get a Democratic view on this speech in a few minutes, but let's go back to Kent Manahan. Kent?
Michael, thank you. And I'd like now to turn to our two political insiders. We introduced them earlier, Roger Bodman and Rick Thigpen. And Rick, let me begin with you and your reaction to the governor's remarks. And is New Jersey a better place today?
Well, in some regards, New Jersey is a better place. And I tip my hat to Governor Whitman, the first woman governor of the state of New Jersey. She showed her best qualities today: moderate leadership, concern for people, willingness to talk about investment in the future to help make New Jersey a better place. In part, she put on display her best qualities. I have a really hard time understanding why they brag about their tax cuts and the $1 billion surplus when they borrowed over $8 billion and they've saddled future taxpayers with increasing debt payments. In 5 years, it's going to be over $2 billion a year we're going to have to appropriate just to pay interest on debt. It's just, their financial management, it just doesn't quite make sense to me. But beyond that, she really did a good job today. She really showed why she's a good leader, and I wish her safe passage to Washington. Those Republicans down there are going to be tough on her.
I think I hear the beginning of the campaign here from Rick, but let me also say that the governor also did not mention the $8.6 billion school construction bond issue, which the state is still facing. But moving on from that, and today, and your reaction, Roger, to what the governor said, and we should note that you on NJN News in your predictions for the new year said that the governor would announce a $1.1 or so billion surplus this year.
I might have had a little hint. It was was an upbeat
We thought you had a
speech.
crystal ball.
Well, that too. I believe the speech was really an upbeat speech, Kent. Also, in many ways, a nostalgic speech, a kind of a combination thereof. I think Michael Aron called it a provisional goodbye or something to that effect. In many ways, that's exactly what it was. The governor really showed her best qualities today. Her human caring, as I pointed out, the maternal feelings I think she has for each and every New Jerseyan that came through in the personal aspects of what public policy means. And I think she really set a great tone for the future here. I would argue with my friend Mr. Thigpen about the fiscal realities of this state. There is each and every one of us, or most of us certainly, have mortgages on our house. There's a place for borrowing in fiscal policy, Rick. And the things that she borrowed for, like Transportation Trust Fund, to help the quality of life of New Jerseyans by better mass transit systems and better roads and highways, and the school construction program you talked about, court-ordered, I might add, which also will make life much better for our students in the future. So those things are important components of public policy, and there's a place for borrowing in a $22 billion budget.
Speaking a little bit about the technique that was used today, some different things that we haven't seen. Of course, it is the governor's presumably final State of the State address, and she is on her way to a new career in Washington. But the theme, if politics is local, then policy is personal. And she ran that throughout the speech, as a good speech giver might do, take a theme and
Sure.
use it several times, restate it throughout. But she also demonstrated it in a number of the effects that were used today. It was demonstrated in the opening video that we saw with the governor in numerous ways. She spoke about it, and at the end, I think in what might have been sort of the climax of the speech today, in bringing Dana Christmas, the Seton Hall student, onto the stage to present her with the first installment of a new scholarship which the governor plans to establish in the name of students who perform heroic deeds. And so she carried that through. Let me get your reaction to that, Rick.
Well, first off, hats off to her.
In a general sense,
to the Dana Christmas gesture. That's really tremendous. A young lady who performed heroism, being recognized like that, that's really outstanding, and the governor really showed her best by doing that. And I agree, policy can be personal. Some of us will wonder about the impact of some of the policies, but I think her feeling of sort of intimacy with her audience was definitely there. I think there's one thing I noticed missing was the increasing challenges or the growing diversity of New Jersey. New Jersey is a different state than it was 20 years ago, and it's going to be even different in the future. And those challenges, New Jerseyans need to be better prepared for. Not everybody understands the importance of the foreign-born residents, people of different color and cultures and religions in the state. And that's also very personal. The governor has not done such a bad job on that, and I'm really surprised that she did not take any trouble today to address that. That's a really important part of our future success in New Jersey.
Maybe she felt, in her administration, her people felt that was the message behind a lot of what was presented today. But we're going to take a break in our coverage of Governor Whitman's State of the State address, and we'll be back with more. We hope you'll stay with us from the War Memorial Building in Trenton. We're going to bring you the Democratic response to the governor's remarks. Stay with us. Hello, I'm Kent Manahan. Welcome back to NJN's coverage of Governor Whitman's State of the State address. The governor gave her remarks to a joint session of the state legislature gathered at the War Memorial Building in Trenton just a few minutes ago. We're going to go back now to the War Memorial, where NJN News senior political correspondent Michael Aron is standing by with the Democratic response to the governor's remarks. Michael?
That's right, Ken. I have the two Democratic leaders of the legislature here, Senator Dick Codey of Essex County, Assemblyman Joe Doria of Hudson County. Before we talk about the speech and the contents of the speech, let me ask you about this event. This was a send-off of sorts for the governor. Did it feel right?
Oh, I think so. It's appropriate. She's served as governor for the past 7 years, and she deserves a nice send-off, no question about it.
Did the fanfare seem right to you, Assemblyman?
Well, I think so. I agree with Dick. It's appropriate. She's now leaving. It's now a celebration, and it's a celebration of the state. I mean, she is the governor of the state, so as such, I think it's appropriate for the people of the state to celebrate the state in this beautiful edifice here, the War Memorial. So I think it is appropriate.
How about the speech? What did you think overall?
Well, is it now time to kick her as she leaves the door?
That's for you to decide.
But it's interesting, Mike. I mean, clearly there's a legacy, but also in terms of a positive one, but in terms of a negative legacy, will it take us 70 years to pay off the 7-year debt that we've built up over the Whitman administration? Yet the greatest economy the state of New Jersey has seen probably in a century. We doubled the debt. That's surplus. Should we now spend down the debt? I think maybe we should. So there is a legacy, but some of it's negative.
An overall reaction from you, Joe Doria?
Obviously, she was playing up the positives. She was playing up what she believed to be her accomplishments. That's appropriate, but I have to agree with Senator Codey. I mean, when you talk about the fact that we have $1 billion surplus, it's very nice, but we also have doubled the state debt from $7.2 billion to $15.7 billion, and that's not including any debt that's going to be issued from this point forward, from $500 for every man, woman, and child in the state to $1,800. That's significant, and it's going to impact upon all of us. $2 billion in debt service in another 2 years that we will have to pay out of the state budget. So we've done a lot of good things, but it's been done at the expense of the future of the state, not on current expenses, and now we have $1 billion surplus, but she's making recommendations to spend it down without trying to deal with the issue of how we are going to pay off our debts.
You talk about the debt, and I know Democrats are going to be talking about the debt a lot this year. The school construction debt that is not yet in the pipeline is going to cause that debt to triple. And yet, you both voted for the school construction. Don't Democrats share some of the responsibility for the increased debt?
We had a proposal before us. We believed that it was necessary to meet the court mandate on school construction to help these urban districts, the Abbott districts, as well as the suburban districts. This was what was presented to us. We had nothing else that we could accept. We got up and we spoke about the problems related to it. We asked questions in the assembly. We didn't vote for the first version of the bill because we had questions. But in the end, we have to obviously do what's necessary to help the children of the state and to protect the public interest. So we were only presented with this as the only way to deal with the issue.
Mike, let's talk about the debt that is on the books, the pension bond issue. That was the largest piece of it.
That was $2.8 billion.
Right, and Democrats, for the most part, almost overwhelmingly voted against it.
The governor today touted 39 tax cuts at a savings of $12 billion. Are you saying that the $15 billion in debt is where the $12 billion went?
What she didn't talk about, Mike, was now when you have to get a marriage license or a death certificate, you pay a lot more than you did previously before she was governor. So she cut taxes there. It was kind of like a shell game, right? Yet raised every free fee there is in the state of New Jersey.
How about the proposal to dedicate $25 million a year to state park improvements and historic preservations? Why do you laugh?
I laugh, Mike, because I think back to the years not too long ago where our parks almost had to shut down because she slashed their budgets. And now she's talking about doing something about them. Where have you been, Mrs. Whitman? I mean, I remember her falling off the swing when the state parks were falling down years ago because she slashed the budget like she did with the DEP.
Well, $200 million in deferred maintenance of the state parks over the 7 years that she's been governor. So that $25 million is going to take a while to catch up to that $200 million in deferred maintenance. Only this year will we get back to the number of employees who were there to work in the state parks to maintain them from the time she became governor. So she cut all of that out. She backed it out, and now she realizes there's a problem because the parks are suffering and the people who use the parks are not finding them to be as conducive to recreation as they should be. So all we're doing now is trying to make up and making up in the future after she's left for the last 7 years where nothing's been done.
Is there a shadow on the signature of the legacy, the 1 million acres of open space? Is there it seems to me that this is a companion to that. Let's take care of the parks and the historic sites as well as simply preserving space. You're casting aspersions on it by saying she's only making up for what she cut. How about the main piece of the legacy? Do you see it as the great accomplishment that her supporters see it as?
Well, I think that remains to be seen, Mike, because that land, if it continues to be purchased, will be purchased over the next decade or so. So that remains to be seen.
She says 200,000 acres have been purchased to this point, so we're a fifth of the way there.
But Mike, my concern is this: where is it being purchased? Is it being purchased in my district? In Joe's district?
Well, you're in urban districts. You're in developed districts.
Well, that's no excuse, Mike. Create parks in urban areas. not just buying land, open space in Republican areas where someone says, you know, the farm across the street from me, I don't want it developed. That doesn't help my constituents in terms of open space. It's got to be open space for everyone throughout the state of New Jersey, and not just some.
You know, farmland preservation is a great concept, except that in many instances, most of the farmland that's being bought is being bought from individuals who have no greater need to have this land preserved, and in many instances are closely tied to the Republican Party. I know in my caucus there's a great deal of opposition to it. I always believed in it, but as it's being used presently, there's a lot of questions on how it's being done, how it's being purchased, and who it's being purchased from.
I'm not sure I understand your concern here, because these landowners could get tremendous amounts of money from developers if they sold their land to developers, and you're saying we shouldn't be spending the dollars in farmlands?
The problem is they probably could get it if the developers could build there, but their opposition from the communities to that development and the kind of criticism that would be received, the likelihood is they can't get it for development because of things like the state plan, because of
Which you support, right?
Well, I support parts of the state plan, yes, but there's questionable parts also. I mean, again, the state plan has some very beneficial areas when we talk about development within urban areas, brownfields, but at the same time, when you start dealing with the issue of overdevelopment in suburban and rural areas, the land doesn't have as great a value as you would think if there's opposition to the development of that land for anything but open space.
Are urban areas not getting their fair share of this billion-dollar program?
Absolutely, positively not. And we raised that issue when this bill was passed to say to the Whitman administration, don't forget the urban areas. Now they have to drive out of those areas to see parks and to see open space. Help those areas to see open space and the parks as well. And it hasn't happened yet. Hopefully it will under a new administration.
It seemed to me that the highlight video that we saw prior to the speech emphasized an environmental aspect to the governor's record.
Well,
what do you think of her environmental record as she heads off to head the Environmental Protection Agency?
Well, Mike, it didn't talk about the fact that she got rid of the environmental prosecutor. It didn't talk about the fact that she slashed the DEP's budget 1/3. It didn't talk about the fact that fines for pollution and other...
Would you urge Democratic U.S. senators to vote against her because of those things?
I think those issues should be raised at a confirmation hearing without question by senators from both parties. And there is some concern, deep concerns by environmental groups saying, is this the right person to head up the EPA? And I think those questions should be asked and hopefully will be asked, Mike.
Your feelings about the governor's environmental record?
Well, I know the film clips at the beginning was basically the photo ops of the last 7 years. They were nice photo ops, but again, the question is, what have you accomplished? I think there's some accomplishments, but it's a mixed record that has to be dealt with. There are some good things, but there's a lot of questionable things as it relates to the record in the area of the environment.
New Jersey's 2 U.S. senators are Democrats, Torselli and Corzine, and they both say that they'll support her. You wouldn't urge them to take a different view, would you?
Well, I think that as Senator Codey's pointed out, that obviously all these issues have to be brought up. There is also obviously the chauvinism of the state and the pride of the state of having had somebody selected for this position. But I think that the issues and the problems that existed in her administration as related to the area of the environment have to be considered and have to be brought up.
You say the chauvinism of the state, but some people say it's actually going to be really good for the state in substantive terms to have an EPA administrator who knows the state. Do you share that view?
We're hopeful. Clearly, if we can get her on the phone, get her up here in her home state to talk about environmental issues, where we need help from the federal government, I think in the long run, Mike, it could be a plus. No question about it.
Now, given the fact that we have the most Superfund sites and we have significant brownfields, that obviously that would be helpful. She understands the issues in the state and understands what's going on. So from that point of view, it would be very beneficial to the state.
What should people out there know about Don DeFrancesco, who presumably will become acting governor if and when the governor is confirmed for EPA administrator? You both have worked with him for many, many years. Is there going to be a difference between working with Don DeFrancesco and working with Christy Whitman?
Oh, I think clearly on the plus side will be that there be more interaction between the legislature and the governor. That's a given, no question about it. He complained bitterly about a lack of interaction between himself and the governor and other legislative leaders. So I think that feeling will no longer exist. But On the negative, I think Don's got to show himself more as a strong leader, as someone willing to take on a hard public stance, willing to see that issue through, and to stand up and say, listen, on another issue, it may not be popular, but this is my stand, and I'm going to fight for it. He really hasn't shown that part of his character yet. If it exists, I don't know. So I think the next 7 or 8 months, Mike, will be very interesting politically in the state of New Jersey.
Assemblyman, your thoughts on a DeFrancesco governorship or interim governorship?
Well, I agree with Dick. Obviously, he understands the legislative process. He'll be able to relate to the legislature more than Governor Whitman, who never really appreciated the role of the legislature. And I do think
Did she make up for it today with her nice gestures and comments and mentioning your two names and saying the legislature was a partner in all of our good works?
We obviously always appreciate the kudos, but at the same time, I think that the issue is one of how the relationships were built and the need for consulting and actually sometimes discussing issues. And we're hopeful that Senator DeFrancesco, who has the experience, 25 years in the legislature, will do that. But as Senator Codey points out, there's a need for leadership. There's a need to take some stands. There's a need to move forward, and that's where the Senate President has to show what he's made of and deal with those issues.
He's got a reputation as a conciliator, a consensus builder. Is it a different talent that's required of a governor, or a more decisive talent? You're shaking your head no. I'm sorry.
I consider that I have many of those same traits, and I do the same type of thing. I think that trait is very.
Would you make a good governor?
Well, I'm not running for governor. I'm supporting someone else. But the point being, I think that those are important traits. Those are very important. But I think the other trait is the leadership trait, the willingness to forge out ahead and make tough decisions when they have to be made. That's where I think we're going to have to see how Don DeFrancesco functions in the next few months.
You wanted to make a point.
No, I think what Don needs to do is be able to say no at times. And a lot of times I think Don's reluctant to do that. Don likes to work things out, which is good for the most part. But at other times, and certainly as a governor, you've got to learn to say no and stand up and fight.
What do you think about his being Senate President and acting governor at the same time, in essence, the leader of 2 out of 3 branches of government?
Well, the one thing I took note of, Mike, that he had a choice of 2 salaries, and he took the governor's. I think that was smart, obviously, a higher salary. But it's going to be tough, and obviously that's a quirk within our Constitution. Hopefully over the next few months we can pass legislation that would make for a permanent governor in a situation like this. So this situation would not exist again in the future of the state of New Jersey.
You think there are problems with this that warrant an amendment to the Constitution?
Oh, clearly, because if he stops being a senator, he stops being governor. I mean, that's a rather obvious problem.
Your thoughts on the dual office holding?
Obviously, this is something that was taken out of the 1847 Constitution and just continued to exist in the state.
Was it? It wasn't invented by the framers of the 1947 Constitution?
No, the 47 just took that part of the Constitution wholly out of the 1847 Constitution. They made no changes. One of the few areas where they made no change as they created the strongest governorship in the country. And I think now the problem here is that in this day and age, given the complexities of government, given the power that exists in both the Senate presidency and the governorship, strongest governor in the nation, that it becomes a situation where this individual has a great deal of power. Hopefully it'll be used for the benefit of the state, but it is something that is very unique almost in the entire country, and it's something that fits into the early part of the 19th century, but definitely I don't think is appropriate in the beginning of the 21st.
What we've got to address, Mike, is the fact that now there's a vacancy. It's not as if the governor's gone on vacation for a week. And that's the problem. It doesn't address the issue of that real vacancy.
You said there's a vacancy. Where's the vacancy?
When she leaves.
Then the Senate President becomes acting governor.
It's different because he becomes governor when she leaves the state at any particular point in time. Now, he is in effect acting governor. But this is different. There's a vacancy, and we've got to address that particular situation, Mike.
I wonder if you'd agree with that terminology, that once he becomes acting governor, there's a vacancy.
No, I mean, there's a vacancy in the governor's seat right now, chair, when she leaves, as opposed to it's almost like she's on vacation. We're running the government the same way. He's the Senate President, therefore he's acting governor. Well, it's not really the same situation, Mike, and that's what we've got to address.
DeFrancesco wants to speed up the New Jersey Saver rebate program this year in a gubernatorial election year. Are Democrats going to go along with that?
Well, Mike, it doesn't surprise me. The issues that we've been talking about for the past couple of years, property taxes, up 36% since Whitman and the Republicans took over Trenton. The issue of drug prescriptions for the elderly. We've been talking about for years, have had legislation in. Don's taking the Democratic agenda and working on it. But clearly there's things that we have to consider. Is it speeding up too much? Can we afford this all at once? Should we expand it? So forth and so on. So I think there'll be some bipartisanship on that, but I think we're going to raise some questions about that over the next couple of months.
Your views on that?
Well, basically, on the Savers program, he's taking a lot of the suggestions that were made by Assembly members on the Democratic side of the aisle and had introduced legislation to do a lot of this that were ignored when we passed the initial legislation and since that time. So he's basically taking a lot of Democratic ideas, as Dick said, and now is accepting them and saying this is the right thing to do when we should have possibly done them and should have done them when we passed the initial legislation. I think we have to look at, number one, how it's going to be done. Will it really address the issues that we are concerned with? Will it really benefit the people? And how will it benefit the people? And the final issue is how are we paying for it?
Assembly Minority Leader Joe Doria, Senate Minority Leader Dick Codey, thanks very much for giving us the Democratic response to the state of the state. There are at least two views of the Whitman legacy. We heard one from the governor herself. We've heard another from the two Democratic leaders of the legislature. I'm Michael Aron at the Trenton War Memorial. Back to you, Kent.
Thank you, Michael. And that concludes our coverage of Governor Whitman's State of the State address. NJN News will have more coverage of the governor's speech on NJN News at 6, 7:30, and 11 o'clock tonight. And we will rebroadcast the governor's remarks at 10 o'clock this evening. I'm Kent Manahan. Thank you very much for being with us.